Hello. This is just a compilation of dinosaur TikToks. Enjoy y'all.
This is the history of life on Earth that we know of. The Cretaceous period had the most iconic dinosaurs of all time. Don't expect me to name all of them, but there was Triceratops and Spinosaurus, the largest carnivorous dinosaur, and the Tyrannosaurus that took over the whole globe, including the Arctic. Life outside of the dinosaurs was doing well too. Mosasaurus took over the oceans, and Pterosaurus took over the skies, the largest having a 40-foot wingspan. Grass and flowers appeared, and bees evolved around the same time. From wasps, snakes evolved during this time. There were crocodilian relatives that could get to 30 feet long. There were also marine turtles that could get to 13 feet long. The mammals were still pretty small, held down by the shackles of the dinosaurs. But some were eating small and baby dinosaurs. But what they didn't know, that the asteroid would wipe out their oppressors, and it would soon be their time to shine. And I'll tell you about that next. This is a history of life on Earth that we know of. Part 2. The Ordovician period, following the Cambrian extinction 488 million years ago. Luckily, the extinction wasn't catastrophic, and many groups were able to survive and diversify, like the conodonts, an eel-like jawless fish, and Sacabambaspis, another jawless fish that had armored plates on their heads, and graptolites, colonial animals that were often plankton. This is also the first time the reef communities developed, with many clams, snails, corals, and cephalopods appearing for the first time, including this, Orthoceras, a group of cephalopods that could get to 18 feet long. It's also most likely when plants and invertebrates came to land for the first time. There were also sea scorpions, some of the apex predators of the time. The end of this period got smacked with a mass extinction, slapped with global cooling, and then slapped with global warming, and then not done, slapped again with reduced oxygen in the ocean, killing off 85% of life on Earth. So what happens next? I'll tell you that tomorrow. This is a history of life on Earth that we know of. The Silurian period, starting 443 million years ago. Life in the oceans was doing pretty well, but the fish were going bananas. And there were new fishes called the Acanthodians, a group that would later evolve into sharks. The Silurian is also the time jaws evolved. There's also a new apex predator in the mix, Pterogotis, the sea scorpion that could get to 6 feet long. There's also this, Solacina Cthulhu, an animal with 45 tentacle-like feet. Trilobites were still around, horseshoe crabs came into the mix, and land started to look more like land. Plants were developing stems, like Cooksonia, but the largest organism on land was something else. This, giant fungus, called Prototaxites. They could get to 26 feet tall, perfect home for the only animals on land at the time, millipedes and worms. What about after that? I'll tell you that next. This is the history of life on Earth that we know of. The Devonian period started 416 million years ago. The big fungus got booted and replaced by the first large trees and forests. Insects became the first animals to ever take flight. Vertebrates finally came to land, with the evolution of limbs from some lobe-finned fish, evolving into animals that could walk on land. But they were only able to flop around for millions of years. In the oceans, trilobites were still around. There were also some new apex predators, like the dunk, Dunkleosteus, a 20-foot-long fish with an armored head, self-sharpening jawbones as teeth, and Geckolopterus, this one, the largest sea scorpion to ever exist. They had big, meaty claws, tear their prey to shreds. What happens next? I'll tell you tomorrow.
She has 18 of these up, you get 4. If you're interested in the rest, go check her out. She's cool.
Do you know what the first dinosaur to ever be named was? Well, what if I told you that its name almost was human ballsack? So there are these official rules where the first name to ever be given to an organism in a scientific context is the name that sticks with it forever. This leads to some misnomers, like king cobras aren't actually cobras, mountain goats aren't actually goats, they're antelope. Blue-green algae is actually a type of bacteria. That's really bad. That's like if somebody called jaguars spotted trees. This guy is Basilosaurus, and it's an ancient ancestor of modern-day whales. It itself was a fully aquatic mammal, so we would classify this as a whale too. But that name, Basilosaurus, translates to the great lizard. It's not a lizard, it's a mammal. And that brings us to what I was talking about at the beginning of the video. This is Megalosaurus. It's a theropod dinosaur discovered in England, and it was named by the legendary Sir Richard Owen, the very first dinosaur to ever be given a name. Now, the very first Megalosaurus bones to ever be discovered didn't really amount to much. They had maybe like 5% of the skeleton, but that was enough to know that it was some sort of reptile. So, going off of what they had, this was their best guess as to what it looked like. Pretty hilarious. As we discovered more bones and learned more about their anatomy and their behaviors, the reconstructions started to get a little bit better. But the early 1900s, you see this absolutely everywhere. They drew the two-legged dinosaurs, or they imagined them, as if they were like kangaroos with this upright posture that really doesn't make any sense. Okay, so remember what I said at the very beginning, and what I also said about the first name something is given is the name that it permanently gets? Well, Richard Owen wasn't the first person to ever examine a Megalosaurus bone. That was somebody else. Way back in 1677, a book about the natural history of England was published with this illustration in it. Now, what we're actually looking at is most likely a Megalosaurus bone, and this is the bottom of a femur. These are what we call epicondyles. They're like the knobby parts on your knee. Knew exactly what this was. They thought maybe it was a piece of a leg bone of a war elephant, but then the trendy thing apparently was to assume that it is the fossilized scrotum of a giant from the biblical times, a human giant. The official caption to this picture says, Scrotum Humanum. Now, this was not a formal scientific publication, so that's why the name hasn't stuck, but the rules are very clear. If it had been, then we would call Megalosaurus man balls.
This is what your favorite dinosaur says about you. And I'm a dinosaur expert, so. First up, we got the T-Rex. If you like this dinosaur, you probably order chicken nuggets and pizza and pasta without red sauce at restaurants because you're 5 years old. This is nobody's favorite. This cannot be your favorite dinosaur if you are older than 5. Next up, the Velociraptor. You're a little bit better than the T-Rex. You're like kind of an asshole though. I feel like this dinosaur is for assholes. I don't even know the name of this dinosaur, but I think if you like this dinosaur, you were probably the type of kid to eat roly-polies. Next up, we have the Brachiosaurus. You're cool. If you like this dinosaur, if this is your favorite, you're probably the coolest person in the world, coolest person in the friend group. You are the group leader. You're the type of person bring those Tostitos hint of lime chips to parties. So, the Triceratops, you're alright, I guess. Like, you're not that bad and you're kind of annoying, maybe. I don't know. This is kind of up there with the T-Rex. You've got to be like 5 years old. The Dilophosaurus, it's kind of like a velociraptor, but cooler. I would say if this is your favorite dinosaur, you think you're mysterious, but people really just think you're weird. The Stegosaurus, I'd say you're cool. You're the type of person to lend me money. If I'm like, hey, do you have $5? They'd be like, yeah. This is a cool dinosaur. You're cool. Honorable mention, the Mosasaur or the Mosasaurus. I feel like if I put this on the list, the other dinosaur experts would hang me. This is honestly probably my favorite dinosaur. He's so fucking cool. If this is your favorite dinosaur, everybody probably wishes they were you. You're the person that walks into a room and everybody talks to you immediately because you're so cool and awesome and so funny and awesome. Anyways, thanks for watching. Follow for more. Maybe I'll make a part 2.
This dinosaur nursery was frozen in time 145 million years ago. I'm the cosplaying paleontologist here to tell you more. Now, this babysitter bone bed from the Cretaceous of China contains the remains of 30 infants and one older dinosaur. These dinosaurs are all Psittacosaurus lugiatuensis, which is actually a ceratopsian dinosaur, meaning that it's more closely related to dinosaurs like Triceratops. Psittacosaurus, which in Latin means parrot-like lizard, was named for its parrot-like beak, which it uses to pry open cones and seeds. Psittacosaurus was bipedal, and its brain-to-body size ratio suggests that it was a highly intelligent dinosaur that would have exhibited complex social behaviors. So what happened here? We call this the babysitter bone bed because the larger skull is actually the skull of a subadult that was too young to breed. And it's unlikely that all of the juveniles could have been offspring of this dinosaur. We know this based on comparing female body size and clutch size, which is the number of eggs that are produced, across archosaurs. Each of the babies were probably about 1 year old based on histology, and comparing their skeletons to those of other Psittacosaurs. Since Psittacosaurus is one of the most commonly found dinosaurs in the fossil record, we know a lot about its biology. So with all of this information, it seems that the subadult would have been a babysitter of sorts to all of these young that would have had different sets of parents in the herd. Us paleontologists think that these these dinosaurs were killed and preserved instantly after being engulfed in material flowing from an erupting volcano. This kind of reminds me of the Shibuya incident. Because the bones don't seem to be damaged by heat, the volcanic flow was probably made up of water, mud, and other debris rather than lava. Like and follow for more!
I'm a fat fucking pig.
I'm a common fungus.
I'm a disgruntled skunk, shoot you out my butthole. I'm a marijuana plant, I can get you fucked up. And I'm Kanye.
If dinosaurs actually existed, wouldn't their bones be everywhere? Let's all put our critical thinking skills to the test this morning.
Hello, my friend. Believe it or not, dinosaur bones are actually everywhere. In fact, they're being found at such a high rate that around 50 species tend to be discovered every year. And then you said that the average person seems to have never found one, and you haven't found one, and no one you know has found one. Well, first of all, there are plenty of average people like you and I that have found dinosaur bones. For example, just this month here in Australia, a retired chicken farmer who purchased a stone slab to use accidentally found a 240 million year old fossil. This was the fossil of an extinct species of amphibian, but the point still stands. As for why you yourself haven't found any, well, that's probably because you have not made an active effort to find them. Because they are quite literally everywhere. You could go down to a river near your local area and potentially find something. It's that common. People I personally know often partake in fossil digs where they go off in groups to go off to an area known for fossils and they dig up a lot of stuff. If you're genuinely interested, you could probably find a group in your area that does something like that and partake to find something.
And another thing, bones can completely decay within 20 years. But these people are finding fossils that are intact, that still have teeth attached.
So yes, bones do actually decay quite quickly, but you need to remember that fossils themselves aren't exactly bones. When a creature passed away, if a layer of sediment covered the bones fast enough, it would create a mold over the bones. As the years go on, minerals surrounding this mold will slowly seep in, and eventually all of the bones will be replaced by sediment and minerals, creating like a stone replica of the skeleton of the animal that passed away. So that's what a fossil is. That's why we call them fossils and not simply bones. It is a little confusing, I guess, but I hope that makes sense.
Officer Kyle, now here is a boob who knows how to do his job. Tell me, you have found the fugitive? Yes! Joyful exclamation! And where is he? Well, there is a tiny problem. How tiny? As long as it's tiny, who cares? Well, before I got the password, I erased him.
passes, you'll end up with molasses, cauterizing syrup and syrup and molasses.
So here's something cute to hopefully brighten your day. It's called Mesodactylus, and it was a pterosaur from the late Jurassic of North America. They were pretty small. They only had a wingspan of 28 inches. Most pterosaurs had pycna fibers, which are basically ancestral hair-like feathers, but Mesodactylus was covered in them. They also had whiskers, big eyes, and a round pushed-in head. This helped them catch bugs at night. Basically a Jurassic version of a bat. It lived with dinosaurs like Diplodocus, Stegosaurus, and Allosaurus. I hope this made your day a bit better.
The two size each other up. Tyrannosaurs will often fight for territory and are not above cannibalism. But there's something else on this male's mind. For he has found a female. And that means showing off his best moves to win her over, but misjudged the approach, and this date could be over in seconds. His mesmerizing movement and deep rumbling calls seem to be eliciting the right response. And she mirrors his courtship dance. But the ultimate sign of trust is exposing his neck. Rising together, they cement their bond. For 150 million years, dinosaurs ruled the planet. Who knows what new heights they might have reached if their reign had continued. But in the story of life, nothing lasts forever.
Listening? Okay. Grass grows, birds fly, sun shines, and brother, I hurt people. Boink! I'm a force of nature. Bonk! If you were from where I was from, you'd be fucking dead.
Not only was there this incredible, beautiful, diverse, vibrant alien world, except it wasn't alien because it was here, where we are right now, and then something ended it abruptly and violently, and that something came from outer space. How often, if ever, do you actually think about the end Cretaceous mass extinction? Did you know that it rained glass? There is a fossil deposit of lake fish that died in the meteorite impact. We know this because in their last breaths, their gills took in these little solidified blobs of rock that were previously vaporized in the atmosphere by the force of this impact. In their last breaths, they took in these spherules from the impact, and in those same last breaths, they took in pollen because flowers were blooming, because in the northern hemisphere, it was springtime. The sun went out for at least months, probably years. Almost certainly, something knew that the world was ending.
If you somehow raised a raptor from its hatching, it might see you as its parent, meaning it will start to follow you, mimic your behaviors, and look to you for food and safety. It would seek your company, respond to your voice, and even tolerate petting. Velociraptors had relatively large brains for dinosaurs, and they could likely learn simple commands or cues. As it grows, it may protect you for having raised it, but its instincts will always make it a dangerous, intelligent predator.
Despite being altered in movies, it was actually even more terrifying in real life than on the big screen. It is a dinosaur that was one of the first kings of the Jurassic and the largest animal in its ecosystem during its heyday. This is the Dilophosaurus.
You know Cretaceous animals like T-Rex and Triceratops. Here's some more heinous ones you might have never heard of. Dinochirus. The name means terrible hands, which is true. Their arms were almost 8 feet long, making them the longest arms of any theropod that we know of. Albertonectes. Their neck was ridiculous. They were 39 feet long with a neck that took up 23 feet of that length. Parapuzosia. The largest ammonite that we know of and possibly the heaviest invertebrate to ever exist. Quetzalcoatlus. Another record holder as the largest flying animal to ever exist. That we know of. They were pterosaurs. The Cretaceous pterosaurs alone were just horrific. This one I like a lot. Diabloceratops. Like Triceratops, but arguably more badass. There was also this, Bahatosaurus. Another one with shit going on that I like a lot. There's also Zephactinus, a massive, horrific beast. It kept accidentally unaliving itself by swallowing large fish whole that they had no business swallowing whole. And Gigantoraptor, a wicked beast. They got to 26 feet long and 16 feet tall. I'm not even scratching the surface yet. I'll tell you about more Cretaceous animals in my new long form video out now. It's my longest video yet because there were too many to not leave out.
Days in the life of one of these weird-looking things. The ends.
Alone at the edge of a universe humming a tune, for merely dreaming we were snow. A siren sounds like like the goddess who promises endless apologies of paradise.
Anything directly exposed to the blistering heat is simply broiled alive. It takes just 5 seconds to flash through the atmosphere. Impact seems instantaneous. But hidden within the cataclysm are a series of discrete events invisible to the naked eye, but key to understanding what follows. The asteroid's trajectory is shallow. It flies in at about a 30-degree angle to the surface. This means the full brunt of its destructive power will be thrown to the north of the impact point. Even before the fireball touches down, its sheer brightness in the sky is unimaginable. 500 miles from ground zero, the light is so intense it makes the Alamosaurus flesh seem transparent and burns flash frames of their shadows onto the ground. The scorching light sears their eyeballs. They have no way of seeing what's headed their way, but they can feel it. An explosive force of 100 million megatons, more powerful than all the nuclear weapons ever built. If the asteroid had crashed into deep ocean, some of the force would have been absorbed. Instead, it hits the shallow waters of the Gulf of Mexico, which instantly vaporize. In a fraction of a second, the entire asteroid disintegrates into the planet. Earth and rock also vaporize and are hurled skyward at 100,000 miles an hour. Behind them, 80,000 cubic miles of the Earth's crust explode from the ground. 500 miles from the crash site, the air temperature now reaches 600 degrees. Hot enough to boil away the water in the dinosaur's skin, which escapes in sudden bursts of steam. The fiery blasts suck every drop of moisture from the vegetation. Anything directly exposed to the blistering heat is simply broiled alive.
You know where you are with. You know where you are with. Floor collapsing, falling, bouncing back and one day I am
What'd she do, Jimmy? She took my fingers to her mouth, the kind of thing that makes you proud, that nothing else had ever worked out, and maybe I tried other things, but nothing can capture.
That's all. Should we make more?